this or you can't do that.
Yeah. Well, we can always go back to Axis.
Whoa. Youst can go back to Axis. I watched him chop stuff today.
Yeah, he's...
Holy cow, he was very accurate.
Was he?
Oh, here's my stone wall.
That's so beautiful there, too.
Might be a little dark for this, but can't hurt to go down here.
All this stuff going up around it.
Ooh.
You know what the British make out of these?
What?
Hedgerows.
Hedgerows. What's a hedgerow, Zach?
They take the, there's some old guys who this is their profession. They grab a young tree and pull it over into a loop
Yeah.
and tie it down. There's a special hook for that.
And then what's the effect? You just have a huge solid
Huge friggin' fence.
wall of foliage?
Wide, yeah. There's an actual geographic article about it because it's got its own ecology now over the centuries they've been making.
Yes, I've heard of this all the time. They'll often talk about hedgerow, but I never knew what it was.
Well, they look like huge hedges, and they're made by pulling the wild trees
And they're
down.
must be pretty near impenetrable after a while.
I think so.
So
They look
Just your
huge.
foxes and stuff can live in there.
Yeah, there's all kinds of hedgehogs, right?
Hedgehogs, yes.
And
The hedgehog's are basically a small porcupine, isn't it?
yeah, no, they're very different from porcupines.
But they have
They're
quills.
the same theme.
From a dog's point of view, they're the same
Well,
deal.
I don't think that they roll into a ball and
Yeah, and they're spiky.
they spike you, whereas porcupines are kind of dangerous. They hit you with their tail or something.
Yeah, now I've heard two different things. I've heard that they can actually launch their tail spikes, and others have said, no, they're just very, very loose. And as soon as you touch them, they got you,
Yeah, that's true, I think. They whack you with that, and it goes in deep. And
It's got barbed points.
Yes, it does.
Very nasty.
It's nasty. The wild animals aren't that great. Here's little frogs.
He was cute.
Tooth and fang.
Yes.
Fang and claw.
But there's some, there's some mythologists and sort of karmic mumbo-jumbo theorists who feel that if you get enough of nature together, it has a collective unconscious or consciousness, just like humans do.
Oh.
So that's sort of the Gaia theory, And I think the entire world has this sort of
consciousness.
Yes, a certain kind of consciousness. And
well, then the human beings have to be part of that.
well, yes, they have to. But when there's too many humans, and there's not enough wild. Like in ancient times, there were just little pockets of humans, and everything else was completely wild. So there reaches a balance point a tipping point where there's more humans than wild. And then the wild consciousness, and that's when you don't see, manifestations of naiads and things like that anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because there's not enough of the bioconsciousness to sustain that, to allow us to project our archetypes onto the world. And so that's how magic disappears. And what's his name? Robert Graves dates that specifically to a certain date when these guys were sailing in this boat from Rome, some kind of cargo galley, and they heard this great commotion as they went, Albania, I guess, around the coast. They were sailing to Greece from Rome, and they were in this wild part there along the coast, I guess it was Albania, and they heard this great crying out, and they pulled in close to shore, and there was huge lamentation going on. It's a very wild area. They didn't see anybody, but this voice said that the great god Pan had died.
Yeah.
So, that's what he dates that moment from, that's it. That's the end of the ancient
world.
Yes, the end of the ancient world. Of course, I just saw, a reference to Robert Graves in a book review on the Sunday book section, and they were saying that, they didn't like this author because he cited Robert Graves as a source.